Okay, so in this episode of Custom Card Reviews, we will be going over a Venom Swamp archetype, or Venom, or Reptile. Here's the thing, this one was sent in through my personal business email, which is pretty rare. Usually I just get sponsorship people sending me things all the time. And usually people do occasionally send me non-business related stuff through the email, and even occasionally they'll send me custom cards. Now, I generally ignore those, because I have it set for, only send me stuff on Twitter. That way I'm not getting custom cards sent to me, in every other place. And also, this archetype, the support they sent me was 10 cards instead of my limit of 5. And the reason I'm recording this, doing this anyway, is because I have a soft spot for Venom Swamp. That's it is one of my favorite really bad archetypes that I tried so hard to get to work. Back in the days before I started doing YouTube, and I probably even have a couple of videos of it on the channel. So, I have a soft spot for the Venom Swamp archetype. In addition to that, the artwork this person chose is from the Medusa arc from Monodagari's second series, which is in my top 10 favorite story arcs of all time. I wrote down a personal little top 10 list of these are my top 10 favorite stories in anime or manga. And the Medusa arc from Monodagari's second series made that top 10 list because it's really good. I love it. So, two of my favorite things. So, not all the artwork is from that. It's just, this is very geared towards me. It's almost like this person could read my mind, so I'm breaking my own rules, just because it appeals to me so thoroughly. So, first up, we have White Snake Corrupted Temple. It's a field spell card. This card's name is Venom Swamp. Good. The original Venom Swamp is not good, even though I love the idea of its effect. I'll talk about that after I talk about this card. So, during each player's end phase, place 1 Venom counter on each face-up monster, except Venom monsters. Monsters lose 500 attack for each Venom counter on them. If a monster's attack is less than its original, its effects are negated. Destroy a monster if its attack becomes 0 by this effect. So, the original Venom Swamp has a very similar effect, where during the end phase you place a Venom counter on each monster, and then they lose 500 attack. And if their attack reaches 0 due to this effect, the monster is destroyed. So, some strategies you could do with Venom Swamp was to have a 0 attack monster. Since their attack is never lowered, they can just generate an infinite amount of Venom Swamps during the end phase, as long as you're able to stall out long enough for that to happen. And then you can use a card like Venom Counter, Venom Burn, I think, where it allows you to remove Venom counters from one monster and then inflict 800 points of burn damage to your opponent for each Venom counter removed. So if you have 10 of them, that's 8,000 points of burn damage, which is a lot. Problem being, getting a monster to survive for, 5 turns to get 10 counters on them is kind of a difficult thing. This card right here is honestly a really good upgraded version of it. It keeps the spirit of it. Venom counters during the end phase, lowering attack. 800 is much better than 500. And also, it negates the effects of monsters with a Venom counter on them, which is great. Let's see. If a monster's attack is less than its original, its effects are negated. Actually, it's not even just having Venom counters on it. If you just lower their attack, their effects get negated, which is so good. And that's honestly very simple way to make the card go from being useless to being really good. If you just lower a monster's attack now, it's basically a monster negate. Good job with that. Next up, we have Deity of the White Serpents, first incarnation. I think this is a level 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. An 8 reptile type monster, 2900 attack. This card cannot be normal summoned, except if you control a reptile monster. Okay. This card is treated as if it's also a spellcaster monster, while on the field or in the deck as well, because that's pretty powerful if it's just always treated as a spellcaster monster. If this card's attack would be lowered, instead it gains the value as attack. Once per turn, you contribute a reptile monster on your side of the field, then count the turn... Then the count of turns goes up to 2, and every effect except this card 1 activates as if 2 end phases were passed. Okay, so that last effect, I think it's saying if you tribute a reptile type monster, you basically get like 2 ticks of the Venom Swamp field spell card. And it's just trying to word it in a way to basically say that. And also, it gains attack equal to the Venom counters instead of losing it. Because, like, unless the card itself has Venom in its name, it's going to get Venom counters on it, and this card wants those Venom counters on it. So that's neat. It's kind of hard to summon, though, unless there's something else that allows you to bring it out easier. Next up, we have Divine Chameleon. It's a Divine type. Reptile exceeds monster. Usually, like, Divine is exclusively reserved for the God card archetype. It's basically like, you know, a God card tag. It's part of their archetype. So unless a card is part of the God card archetype, it shouldn't have Divine Attribute or Divine Beast type. Because that's like their thing. That's like their flavorful thing. The only reason they have separate attributes and types is because that's literally just their archetype. So randomly making them Divine type, even if, you know, the name is Divine and everything, it's a neat little flavorful thing, but it kind of goes against, you know, unless it also has a guard, unless it's also God card support, it really shouldn't be. But maybe it will. Let's read this. 3 level 5 reptile type monsters. Oof. Oof, that seems really difficult. You can also Exceed summon this card by using a Chameleon Exceeds monster you control as the Exceeds material, except Divine Chameleon. Exceeds materials attached to that monster also become Exceeds material on this card. Long as this card has materials, it cannot be destroyed by card effects or battle, I'd assume. That's neat. I'd have to see what other Chameleon Exceeds monsters there are, because it seems like that really tough summoning requirement is probably there because it's only intended to be ranked up into, kind of like the Zodiac monsters. They all have really weird normal summoning conditions. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Exceeds material from this card, then target 1 monster in the graveyard. The name of the effects of this face-up card on the field can be treated as a selected monster. Hold up 1 second. Let me read this again. Okay, so I just had to double read this to make sure I was reading it correctly. But yeah, you can detach an Exceeds material to basically copy the effect of a monster in your graveyard. I mean, like, there's a reason Tyrant Neptune and Venom Fusion Dragon are, you know, banned, because copying effects from the graveyard is really OP with Assembled Nightingale. However, this card is an Exceeds monster, and that card can only be taken advantage of by monsters with a level. And this card doesn't have a level. It has a rank. So it wouldn't work with Nightingale. And honestly, I can't think of any other... I mean, I'm sure there are. Usually copying effects from the graveyard is super powerful. I think on an Exceeds monster, though, it's not as much. Because, like, the big problem with copying monster effects in the graveyard is Assembled Nightingale. So, this card doesn't really work with that anyway. This card is, like, the effect. I said, like, you know, it's... its summoning requirement was too difficult. It's like, wow, that's too much. 3 level 5 reptile type monsters, useless. And then once I read the effect, I was like, this is too easy to bring out. That's too easy to bring out for the kind of effect it has. You know, that one has me scratching my head a little bit. Like, it seems overpowered or unviable, and I can't really think of which it is. So next up we have Gnat Eco, priestess of the white snake deity. It's the main character from the Medusa arc in Monogatari 2nd series. Great show. Great series. Great arc of that show anyway. This card is unaffected by field spell card. So basically Venom Swamp. Once per turn, you can banish one reptile monster in your graveyard, special summon this card from your hand, and it gains the name and effects of the banished monster. Yeesh. Yeesh. Once per turn, if your opponent monster loses attack, you can search a trap card from your deck. During your turn, you can activate trap cards from your hand. Eesh. Eesh. I'm saying eesh because this card's broken. During your next turn, you can activate trap cards from your hand. Okay. During your next turn. It's not on your turn. So you can't FTK with this card. You can only OTK with this card. Which isn't half bad, because I mean, like, what deck can't OTK? And it's by burn damage, so, you know, you have to wait till your next turn anyway. Okay, man, these cards have really broken effects, but also, they're limited in a way where I can't really tell if the effect is broken or not. That's pretty surprising. Like, on the surface, I want to say, obviously, if you can activate any trap cards from your hand, that's broken. But the inherent way you can do this means you can't do it on your first turn, because you have to wait a turn. But, you know, waiting a turn, you could just, like, stall out for a turn pretty easily against most decks. And then just pull this off and then go for the FTK in that way. But also, you know, like, you could probably accomplish the same thing with a chain burn deck. But I don't know how strong chain burn decks are. I don't know if you'd really want to try to play this, because it seems like really hard to summon as well. Actually, no, it's not. You just have to banish a reptile-type monster from your graveyard. That's super easy. Never mind. And you also have to make your opponent monster lose attack, which this whole archetype can be about. But would you really want to play cards in this archetype in order to play like an FTK trap burn strategy? Probably not. So it seems like the effect was thought out so that it would only work within its archetype. But also, would it work that well in its archetype? Are there any trap cards? Like, I'm looking at this list. I don't think I would send any trap cards, so I don't really see the synergy in that. Alright, also, you know, it copies an effect in the graveyard. That's really good, but it only copies a reptile-type monster, which means meh. There's no good reptile-type monsters to copy. You know, except for maybe the previous card, but that one requires you to detach an Exceeds material in order to copy an effect from the graveyard. Alright, let's go on to the next one. We have Venom Fire. It's a quick play spell card. Remove as many monsters which have their attack lowered than their original. Then inflict 500 life points for each card removed to both of the players. If you control no reptile monsters while this card's effect is resolving, you take 4,500 life points before the damage calculation. This effect cannot be interrupted. Interrupted? This is like, you know, like, excluding the number of spelling and grammar mistakes. I kind of get the gist of this card. So, it's spell speed 4. That's basically what it's saying. Interrupted is a Magic the Gathering term for, like, negates, I think. I don't actually play Magic, but I do know some of the terms. So, in Yu-Gi-Oh terms, a card that can't be interrupted is spell speed 4. You know, your opponent can't activate cards or effects in response to this. But in this case, it's more of like a really specific one of your opponent just can't negate this effect, I guess. But they can activate cards in response to it. So I guess it's not spell speed 4, it's this card's effect cannot be negated, which is an effect some cards have. Like, lots of pendulum monsters have that effect. So it's a thing that exists in the game. It's just only ever used on like pendulum monsters. It's rarely actually used on like these kinds of effects, and usually these kinds of effects are given a spell speed 4. And what it does is it just inflicts burn damage based on the amount of monsters that are missing attack. So, like, you know, it's not like Venom Burn where it can OTK your opponent as long as they have like 10 counters. This one is like, you know, if your opponent has 3 cards and their attacks are lowered, and then you have 1 card whose attack is lowered, then that's 2,000 points of burn damage. But if you don't control reptile type monsters, then you take 4,500 points of damage. It's not very good. Let's just put it at that. Let's go on to the next card. Next we have Sparkling Chameleon. This one is light type, much more appropriate than divine type. Reptile exceeds 2 level 4 reptile type monsters. Hey, more reasonable. As long as this card has materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle. Okay. Once per turn, you can detach 1 exceeds material from this card. This card's name and effects become the one of the exceeds materials detached. Huh, that's a unique effect. If it's 2 reptile type monsters though, it would just like gain the effect of a level 4 reptile type monster. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any good level 4 reptile type monsters that have an activatable, you know, spell speed 1 or 2 effect. That can happen on the field, because it wouldn't be able to activate like floating effects or summoning effects, which is usually what those kinds of cards have. So maybe I'd have to just see a level 4 reptile type monster in this archetype to see if that's worth it or not. Axel, looking closely at this card, is this a League of Legends card? Like, I don't play League, but I kind of recognize the art style a little bit. I think it might be. I don't know. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments. Next up, we have Deity of the White Serpent, Second Vessel. I don't think there's been a single Venom card yet. Like, a single Venom monster, whose name literally has Venom in the title, so it's unaffected by Venom Swamp without having to say it's unaffected. Okay, so Deity of the White Serpent, Second Vessel. A level 7 monster? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, this card's name can be treated as if it was Venominon, the King of Poisonous Snakes. As long as this card is on the field, during your enemy player's end phase, your enemy has to choose 1 of your monster and then destroy it. Other reptile monsters cannot be targeted by any effects as long as this card is out on the field. Man, like the wording in the first couple of these was actually pretty good. Now it's kind of degrading a little bit. Like, proper PSTC, problem solving card text, PSC, oh, I did say it right. Like, when you refer to your opponent, you call them your opponent, not your enemy. I don't know if that's a Magic the Gathering term. I don't think it is. Magic's even like more like strict on words they use. They like to say as little as possible. As long as this card is on the field, during your enemy's player's end phase, your enemy has to choose 1 of your monsters and then destroy it. Other reptile monsters cannot be targeted by any effects as long as this card is out on the field. So it has a negative effect. It's hard to summon. It can't be brought out easily. I mean, it is treated as Venominon, the King of Poisonous Snakes. The thing with that card, though, like, since your opponent has to choose to destroy this card, you can use it to bring out Venominaga, you know, the card that allows you to win the duel if it inflicts battle damage 3 times. Because that's what the name changer is for, and that's what effect is. Like, the effect is basically trying to, you know, it's like, it seems like a negative effect where your opponent has to destroy your cards, but it's actually trying to activate the effect of the trap card that allows you to bring out Venominaga. It seems to do it in a weird way, though. Other reptile monsters cannot be targeted by effects as long as this card's out in the field. So it's basic, as long as you have other reptile type monsters, your opponent can only choose to destroy this card. But it has to be alive during your opponent's end phase. Oh, I guess that's what the activating trap cards from your hand thing is, because part of the reason Venominaga is hard to bring out is because the only way to bring it out is to destroy Venominon, the King of Poisonous Snakes, and then also have a specific trap card on the field. And it's really hard to like have those two things interact. I'm starting to see the strategy with this now. It's a good thing I know the Venom archetype so well off the top of my head, otherwise I'd just be completely lost here. Flame-colored Kiss. Kiss like the Kiss Shot Vampire from Monogatari. Once per turn, if you control a White Snake or a Venom card, you can choose one monster on the field. It loses 800 attack and inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Then you can special summon one reptile monster whose level is 6 or higher. When that monster gets destroyed, you lose life points as the attack of the card special summoned by this effect. It forgot to mention where you special summon the reptile monster from. Let me read this again. Then you can special summon one reptile monster whose level is 6 or higher. Yeah, it doesn't specify, so special summon from where? That is very important. Like, special summon from your hand? Meh. Special summon from your graveyard? Hey, that's pretty good. Special summon from your deck? That's super good. Special summon from your extra deck? Well, that's broken. Straight up broken. That's too good. Specifying where it gets special summon from, even like the Banish Zone, that's good too. I wouldn't say it's better than the deck or extra deck, but you have to specify these things because it matters very much. So I have no idea how good this card is because I don't know where it actually special summons the monster from. If it's just from the hand, it's alright, I guess. It's probably not worth playing. If it's from the deck, that's super good. But I don't know. So let's go on to the next card. Next up we have White Deity Snake Intervention. Hey look, it's Nadusa. It's Gnat Eco from Monogatari's second series. It's a quick play spell card. Once per turn, if you control only reptile monster, banish one monster from either side of the field, which has less attack than its original attack. So it's a 1-for-1 trade-off, which has conditions. It's not very good. Let's go on to the next one. Curious Chameleon, a level 4 reptile monster. Ooh, so that means it could be used with the Exceeds monster. Once per turn, if this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle one banished monster into your deck. Special summon this card on your side of the field. Its name becomes one of the shuffled monsters. During the turn, you cannot make any extra deck summons except for a Chameleon monster. Okay, I think I'm getting the gist of the Chameleons. Like, they all change their name, and, it's because it's a chameleon, they changed their name. And if they change their name to a Venom monster, they won't be affected by Venom Swamp. That's why none of them have Venom in their name. That's neat. It's also broken. Because it's just shuffle any banished monster into your deck and then special summon this card, and then it gains its name. Hey, look, this is a level monster. That means Nightingale. Nightingale is live. It also just gains the name permanently, and the effect, I'd assume. No, I think this one only gains the name. It doesn't gain its effect. Its name becomes one of the shuffled monsters. Yeah, okay, never mind. Forget what I just said. That's not as big a deal. Copying a name isn't really a big deal. Copying an effect is a big deal. And then during this turn, you cannot make any extra deck summons except for chameleon monsters. That's probably reasonable, because this card special summons itself from the graveyard pretty easily. And it seems like it would work in any deck, not just, Venom monsters or reptile decks. So making it xenophobic like this, locking out special summons of other types of monsters, is a good way to balance it, to make sure it's only used within its archetype. That being said, looking at this card's effect, that makes me think the rank 4 monster is useless. Like, there's no good reptile type monsters to use its effect with, unless you just attach a monster to it in another way. Which, I mean, there are ways to do it, but that's really convoluted. And I don't think that would make it, unless I'm missing a card that's super easy to use that allows you to attach any card to a monster as an XYZ material. I don't think there are cards that are that easy to use. Okay, so that's it for the archetype so far. I am a big fan of Venom Swamp and stuff. I'm kind of disappointed to see not a single Venom monster. There's only 4 Venom monsters in the game. You know, cards that have Venom in their name, so they're unaffected by Venom Swamp. And one of them's like a normal monster that's really bad, and the other 3 are, you know, effect monsters that are really bad. So I was excited to see some new Venom monsters that could actually take advantage of the field spell card. Instead, it's just a whole bunch of reptile type monsters who just avoid the field spell card through other means, which is kind of disappointing. Also, some of the effects are, like, they have broken effects, but they have restrictions to them to the point where, you know, it's not a big deal unless I'm just totally missing something, which, hey, good attempt at balancing it. At least it wasn't a straight up, you know, activate any trap cards from your hand during this turn. That's broken. Or, you know, copy any effect from the graveyard. Well, I mean, one of them basically had that, but it was kind of hard to bring out. And it's an Exceeds monster. That's still really strong. I think probably Sparkling Chameleon is the strongest card here because it allows you to copy an effect from the graveyard, which is really good. Other than that, everything else seems kind of meh, except for the field spell card. That was really good. So one of the cards is really strong. The field spell card is a really great Venom Swamp alternative. The other cards, though, were kind of disappointing. So, you know, if I were to give this a final score, I'd have to give it like a 5 out of 10. Okay, so that's it for the Venom archetype. If you have any or custom cards, send them to my Twitter like normal. Try to keep them to 5 or less. I probably won't review any other, 10 card series. And also, if you like custom cards, there's a Discord and a subreddit, I think. Anyways, I'll have both of them linked in the video description. If you wish to join, other fellow custom card makers, there's lots of them out there. So, until next time.